Chocolate Rain is 10 years old. How fucking weird is that?
God.
Chocolate Rain. Do you remember when 4chan hacked the front page and it was all Chocolate Rain? Oh, that's how that video
No,
got
I don't
so,
remember that.
That's why that got so popular, because one day, I guess it was before YouTube was bought by Google. And
Oh, that's
yeah,
right.
I guess somebody got into the code. I don't fucking know. My set of computers is like the movie Hackers.
Yeah, here's what it was. They were in a 3D maze with a skeleton.
No, but that's why that video blew up so much, is because at one point it was every single video on the front page of YouTube. Like every thumbnail
I did not know
was Chocolate
that.
Rain. It was absolutely incredible.
He's been trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle for like the last 10 years as well. Like he's had other songs.
He's Jason David Frank. He is the guy that just shows up wherever for any reason, for anything. Just if you need a guy to show, it's like Tezon Day will be there. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's also, that must be a strange thing anyway, to be that person who, like, you can show up somewhere and people will go, oh, it's the Chocolate Rain guy.
Yeah.
And like, if it's people who aren't used to it, like it might be a little bit special.
Sure.
Like, but I remember that stuff with VidCon. The first time I went, I remember like seeing, I think it was the guys who do like auto-tune the news and stuff. And
Right,
they did all
yeah.
their and their big finale. And it was great because it was like seeing, like He's Climbing in Your Windows, like all their like songs that they did like live. It was great, exciting. Everyone's in the crowd. And then that year, it was amazing because they brought out the Double Rainbow guy. Like, he came out in person, and it was amazing. And then the following 2 years, that was their big thing at the end as well.
Double Rainbow guy?
Like, then he shows up. Like, and I was like, the third year in a row where, like, he's your big, like... But I guess that's, like, his 15 seconds of fame.
That's a commentary.
Do people even know what he looks like? Isn't that video just him, like, filming?
I thought he's like a Hawaiian guy. Or I may be thinking that because I'm thinking of the Somewhere Over the Rainbow Man cover.
But, like, I don't think that I would know the Double Rainbow guy if I saw him.
Well, it's funny. You just kind of take take it at their face value when they say, like, and now presenting, like, and he shows up, and then, like... And then it's funny because everyone goes, yeah. Then
that's so weird. That's a weird commentary on the transience of internet fame, though, or where the people cheering for you, there's always like a 6 layers of irony there, where it's like they enjoy the song, but it's also fun to laugh at. But they also enjoy it, but mostly you're a joke, which is kind of that's the Tezon Day thing, where it's like, is there anyone out there who loves Chocolate Rain?
Well,
they think
Chocolate
it's a great
Rain
song.
was made in earnest. That's a very earnest song that he made.
It's not like he was trying to be funny, and the song's not particularly funny. It's just like surreal in like a Tim and Eric kind of way,
and it's the leaning away from the mic, and it's everything. Like, but it's
so
also
quirky.
a good example of something like that would not go viral if it was done on purpose.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if it was done to be funny, like you'd go, no, like you're just trying to be funny. But
and
like,
also of that, I think the song's like 4 minutes. Only 20 seconds are funny. You only know 20 seconds of Chocolate Rain.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, there's no bridge, there's no chorus. It's just one verse the whole time.
Yeah. Any of the like bad movies that we've all celebrated, like whether it's The Room,
absolutely,
Room's a good movie.
Yeah,
whether it's The Room,
that's a weird,
or like Birdemic or whatever. Like those movies wouldn't be fun. It's kind of one of the reasons why I find it hard to like watch the 3rd and 4th Sharknado movie,
right?
Because it's that thing where you go
like Piranha,
because it's like, oh, like you're trying to do it, and hence it's not funny. Like these movies only kind of work when they're like done so earnestly that you go, I don't know.
And that's every marketing department's been trying to capture that lightning, and they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
they would love a Chocolate Rain.
Well, it's weird because you can be silly on purpose. You can't be bad on purpose.
Absolutely, and a special like a resonant kind of bad, where it's at good-natured bad, where at its core, the person that made this really wanted to make a thing, and they really tried their best. That's there's no doubt in my mind that that's the best movie that Tommy Wiseau could have made. That is because he is genuinely an unhinged, possible drug addict, possible ancient person.
Yeah.
Is there like a million stories about how old he actually is? Like he's like, he's been saying he's 40 since like 1993.
Tommy Wiseau has nobody knows who he really is. I'm sure there are photos of Tommy Wiseau from like 1870 where it's just like, there he is. He's there with
signing the Declaration of Independence. All right.
I'll always remember driving along and seeing like a really big like Humvee or whatever, like, and it had www.theroom.com on it, and I was like, and I remember just thinking like, no way. Is that going to be him? Is that going to be Tommy Wiseau? And then we drove past it. We were like, holy shit, it is.
Oh,
him.
absolutely.
He drives around in a big old...
I imagine without the makeup, he looks a bit like the Crypt Keeper, just like a fucking, like a literal puppet with terrible
a lot of
thinning
shit in
hair.
his car.
Really?
It was like filled to the brink with like stuff.
Oh my god.
So I was like, is he collecting things?
Nobody knows even where he got the room cost $5 million, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Like in its own right, but nobody knows who financed it.
Yeah,
Right.
like even $100 of that money, it's just an absolute question mark. Yeah, isn't there theories that he smuggled some kind of, not drugs, but something weird, like porn or avocados or something you wouldn't think of as.
There's a theory that
Smuggled
he
avocados and inside
There's-
drugs and porn.
There's a theory that he murdered somebody.
Okay, we'll get.
Oh,
into
I'm
that.
sorry.
No.
There's a theory that he murdered somebody and like took their identity because I read some Vice article where like they went to.
Holy shit.
His favorite movie is The Talented Mr. Ripley, which is a movie where that happens. And he went to see it with him. Like they did there was a screening of it, and Tommy Wiseau just like cried through the whole movie. Like it was really deeply affecting him. And so the guy's always like, Tommy, did you do this?
I love that idea that when you watch a movie and you're affected by it, it's like, are you Batman? Did this happen to you? It's like, no, it's just fucking. I cried at the movie 9 as well. I'm not like a series of sack puppets. Like, I don't know what the fuck. Hey, welcome to Reasonable Beef, everybody. I am Tim E. Kish. Dom is actually away at TriBeCa, seeing things and doing people, doing whatever, any order. And I have,
That's a way of saying that we killed him.
yeah,
Is that true? Dom's
doing things. and
Very busy schedule this week and the indefinite future.
That's what we say when filmmakers die. It's not like he went to a farm. It's like he went to TriBeCa.
Yeah, he's in pre-production now.
He's touring his film across the states even today. Yeah, welcome to Reasonable Beef. Hey, TimH is here again,
Hello.
and Nick Oldershaw.
Yep.
And this is the Clash of the Titans, motherfuckers, because this is Defenders of the Rotten, Volume 3, featuring the guests from Volumes 1 and 2, facing off. So you guys know the rules of this game, or maybe you don't. This is Defenders of the Rotten, a.k.a. Puller Downers of the Fresh, a.k.a. the Rotten Tomatoes game. Everybody gets 2 movies. One movie considered good, we think isn't so good. And one movie considered bad that we want to raise to the ranks of good movies. Now, this is based on Rotten Tomatoes score alone, which we understand is an aggregate score. It's not actually a percentage score, but fuck off. Please do not do that to me right now. I guess we'll just jump into it. Do you want to? I guess we'll start with Tim. Buzz
So
in
what are we
if he wants
doing?
to go
What are we
first.
doing first? Are we ripping things down?
We'll
or?
go with the posies. Movies
Positives?
that considered not so good. You want to consider pretty damn.
I'm gonna
good.
make sure I get my percentages right.
Okay.
So the movie I am defending is Passengers. Came out last year, December.
Cool.
And so it currently is sitting on Rotten Tomatoes at 31%. And I just think that's a bit harsh. Like that's sort of where it comes to for me. I think I want to bring it up to approximately. I don't know if I want to get it fresh. I think I will. I'll bring it up to like 60.
Really?
Like on the very edge.
Okay.
I would say I think I'm defending it partially based on the movie's merits, but also based on like what Sony and everyone are trying to do with
Right.
it. So like,
Right.
I'm acknowledging that up front, because I will admit when I saw it, my initial reaction to it wasn't that positive.
Right.
But then at the same time, I went and then saw how bad the reviews were and found myself,
Right.
Like-
where it's just like, hey, well, hang on a second now.
Yeah,
I have the same thing where you find
because-
yourself in the middle position.
Here's the larger industry stuff that I think is good. I'm glad they made an original sci-fi movie. I'm glad that they tried to do a thing where they just cast 2 prominent people in something and try and make an original movie of some kind.
Right.
I actually think the pitch itself is quite smart and quite good, which I do understand comes into the whole lost potential thing, which is absolutely valid with this movie. But I do think, 2 people on a ship, hibernation pods malfunction, they're stuck forever.
Sure.
Is a brilliant concept, I think.
I don't know,
Like,
because I feel like we've seen that in sci-fi quite a bit. I mean, there is even some scenes at the start of this movie where I'm like, oh, this is The Last Man on Earth season 1. Like a lot of it is, especially where
Yeah.
he's going through and doing all the hedonistic stuff.
In a sense, it leads to what I think it should have been, which is I think the movie's ultimate identity crisis is that it can't decide whether it's Titanic in space. Sort of with like 2 people
Yeah.
who both pods break and they're just there together, and it's basically a love story. It's just set against this like rather epic backdrop.
Sure.
It can't decide whether it's that or whether it's a like far darker exploration of like loneliness about one person going insane and deciding what he needs to
It's
do.
interesting. There were I actually was a little surprised by the movie because I thought there were a lot of thoughtful moments in it. Like I was really struck by him the first time he ventures out and sees the vastness of space and he starts crying. But there was that weird montage when we were watching it where like it is like the last man on Earth, but then there's that scene where the robots come and like clean up his crumbs and he like kicks him away and then he goes, "No, come back." But the happy music was still playing and I'm like, I think recontextualized.
May I note the most montage-ass music of all time, A Little More Conversation by Elvis Presley. Like, can you pick a more whatever? Look, that could have been a post thing.
No, I agree. And also,
was.
it's funny because I've heard rumors because this was basically my understanding, and you can verify this. I'm not going to, and I'm sure
No one
commenters
will.
But I think it was a blacklist script.
Yes,
that got picked
it was.
up. And that my understanding from people who read it was that originally it was ordered differently. So the structure of the movie was that I think, and it's the thing that actually recently Nerdwriter made a video about, and it went kind of viral on YouTube, and it's basically about the fact that the perspective character should have been Jennifer Lawrence.
Absolutely.
And that then the twist would be, oh, he woke her up.
Exactly. Well, I was
Like,
going to say the exact same thing. We shouldn't have spent so much time with him.
And I think what they were probably thinking was the fact that we have this information that Jennifer Lawrence doesn't means that there's a sort of ticking time bomb element of like at some point she's going to find out, and we're watching every scene with a sense of suspense.
But she does remarkably early.
I agree, and the other problem that comes with it is that you can't enjoy the romance because you know the context.
Very true.
So I think that's again what takes it away from being able to fully be.
Because it does give a strange. People have called it sexist. I don't know if it's exactly sexist, but it's definitely fucking weird. Where it's he made this decision for her, and then at the end she just kind of has to suck it up and go with it.
But the movie also acknowledges that. There's that scene with the bartender where he says, "You made the right choice," and Chris Pratt was like, "Oh, what did I do?"
Yeah.
So it understands that.
I actually, again, it's a good example of something where I like and dislike the movie at the same time, which is again why I'm saying that I kind of want it on the edge of of rotten and fresh, because it's one of those things where I think the movie at first does a really good job at like not letting him off the hook for it, because she literally says like she basically says you killed me.
Yeah.
Like if I remember
murder.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says it's murder.
So you know, the movie does hold him accountable for his decision, and at the same time as well, a lot of people said it was creepy. I think the first half hour does do a good job at showing you how he got there.
Right, his
he doesn't
desperation.
which again I understand that like because the movie was marketed as like, oh, it's these two attractive stars and it's a romance in space, you then find it weird to watch a movie that's like that has those undertones. So again, I think going for like that mass market doesn't work, but I think the movie did a good job at like, it's not he didn't just think to do it, like it was a decision. I think where the movie then messes up is that the ending then should have been a genuine redemption for him.
Right.
And she probably should have, like, I get what they were doing. It's the more romantic ending, I guess. Sure. But again, it's because maybe the filmmaker inside me wants that like slightly darker movie where he does redeem himself and saves her.
She's over it in 10 minutes.
It's less dark because it destroys her agency as a person to she gets the choice to live again. She has that choice and she chooses not to because like she spent this whole movie telling him that, you know, I guess she eventually does come back around to him, but it just seems very, it seems saccharine.
I think what I come back to with this movie is I think it prompts too much conversation and it does too many interesting things and bad things, but it does too much for me to go, dismiss this movie. 30%, no one should, 30% to me says no one should really watch this, no one should really bother. Whereas I would call it, like understandably, like the good and bad elements, at the very least you're going to come out of it and you're going to have an opinion.
Sure.
And you're going to talk about it. And there are so many, like I think it does an okay job at like not being just bland and forgettable.
Totally.
Like you'll have a reaction to Passengers, I think.
I was going to say, if you're like a hard sci-fi nerd, you can find a lot to love here in just the design of the spaceships and the tech. Having like the spinning cylindrical spaceship, it's fucking rad. A lot of the tech in this was really, really cool. Yeah. It's like a cool sci-fi vision. Maybe not the most original, but just like oh wow, that looks, a near future kind of thing. I dig that.
Yeah.
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 The Weatherman with Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
It's an older movie. It's from 2005. It's Gore Verbinski, who most people know from the Pirates movies, and I feel like the only movie that he's made that people like is Rango. But The Weatherman is like, for this guy who's usually making these big bombastic, like, pirate, he did The Lone Ranger, stuff like that. These films are like huge action set pieces.
Like the first Pirates.
The first part, yeah.
Oh yeah, I love the first Pirates.
It's great. But The Weatherman is like this really restrained, small personal drama about this weatherman played by Nicolas Cage, whose life is falling apart, and he's desperately trying to overcompensate and save his relationship with his kids, save his relationship with his dying father, and try to get his wife back. And I think people didn't like it because they said that it was it was depressing. They thought that like the messaging was really depressing. But the ultimate message of the movie is that, look, you're not going to fix all these things in your life. Sometimes you've gone too far to really like realistically come back, but you can still have a good life.
Right.
And I just think, I don't know, I think that's, I love everything about that. I love the performances. I love Michael Caine. The cinematography is fantastic. And I just think that's a more important lesson than like whatever, the Hollywood family dramas we see like sort of push.
Well, let's talk about the map on the back of the Declaration of Independence in the room, which is Nick Cage, who is a lottery.
Sure.
Anytime Nick Cage is in a movie, he's most likely not going to be great, but then every once in a while,
Well, this is a very
annihilates.
Yeah, this is a very understated Nick Cage performance. This is like up there with like Adaptation or Matchstick Men or like Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I would say, like, because he doesn't do the Nick Cage
Wicker
thing. No, yeah, it was
Vampire's
a year.
Kiss.
It was a year before Wicker Man. Vampire's Kiss is good, but that's another
really love
conversation.
That is a comedy. Anyway,
Vampire's Kiss is a good movie. There are 3 people who think that. It's got a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
And it's never made me feel anything but joy when I watch it. Like I walked around for years thinking like, oh yeah, that critically acclaimed movie, The Weatherman. Yeah. Not at all. People hate it. It seems very much in the same vein as Captain Fantastic, which is a movie that just came out that I didn't care for nearly as much. And people loved that. So I don't know. Maybe it was whatever.
Who's in Captain Fantastic?
Viggo Mortensen.
Is that how we're pronouncing his name now? Mortensen?
I think that's how I pronounce it.
Viggo Mortensen?
It's Mortensen. I think that's me.
Yeah, you're just an idiot.
Well, this is the Kim Basinger argument all over again, where it's like the people who are doing the trailers are saying her name, or Lindsay Lohan, or Lindsay Lohan. Right. It's like, fucking, who cares?
Yeah.
We know who I'm referring
Lindsay.
to. I don't think me or Tim have seen The Weatherman.
That's okay. I would recommend, I thought maybe not, but I would recommend, if you're listening to this and you want to see a really good movie, it's got like a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes. I would reverse those numbers.
Whoa.
I would give it a straight up 85.
85?
It's confident. It's it's a great movie. I don't know, like every story beat I love. Like the movie hits its mark the whole way through. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
The new rule for this was that we have to watch everyone's movies, and The Weatherman is one that me and Tim, for whatever reason.
That's okay.
Collectively, we're like, we don't have time for this.
What we need to improve in our method is choosing a week in advance.
Yeah,
not the Friday.
Let's just run through this recording on Sunday.
There's also something really funny as well about like, I think picking a movie that's, well regarded, we're likely to have seen it, so we'll already have an opinion on it. There is something funny about like, and it goes against the very point of like this.
Right.
But it was like, cool. Let's watch The Weatherman. How much does it got?
58%. No. I did this.
It's
the
very
thing that we're
good.
railing against. We are doing exactly. The Accountant.
I like The Accountant.
From
I'm gonna be okay with
last year, directed by Gavin O'Connor, written by Bill Dubbock, starring Ben Affleck and Anna Kendrick. Came out in October of last year. $44 million budget, 152 at the box office. So it did good. It did an all right job. It's currently sitting at a 52. This movie introduces one of the most interesting and compelling action movie protagonists I've seen in the last 10 years. Very memorable. He is the accountant. The whole world has this idea about who this guy is and how efficient he is and how he's just a machine. And we see him be broken for most of the movie. Like we see him just like dealing with the inner turmoil of what it's like to be an autistic person. I love the hook. I love the autistic assassin, and it sounds like it would be super exploitative and really gross, and it's not. It's handled with a degree of softness and sensitivity, and he also fucking kicks ass. Mercilessly executes dudes with machine like. Oh my god, awesome. This is a very lazily directed movie, which is a damn shame because it's an action movie. But I think
I do remember thinking some of the initial action scenes, like when he goes to, it's the fairly classic beat, but when he goes to like save Anna Kendrick,
right?
I was like, I remember thinking that was like, well, I mean, maybe that's more of a compliment on the stunt team, but I remember thinking those bullets hit.
Sure.
Like when he like shoots, I always think there's something interesting about movies in general because we've seen people get shot on movies to such an absurd degree that like it won't impress us as a or it takes a lot to feel
totally,
impressive. And I remember thinking him versus like 3 dudes or something. Like, and I remember thinking every time that one of them got shot, it was, oh, right, shit. Like, so I remember thinking that was like impressively handled as like an action
you're
movie.
also coming off on like, this is the era of John Wick, where it's I wish that this hook had John Wick's action direction and fight choreography, because some of the stuff in this movie, I mean, even just the normal ass people doing normal ass things just felt like, all right, just set the camera up here. I think the hook is fun, the dialogue is fun. The big bad is his brother, spoilers, and he's getting to the point towards the end of the film where you've been building this brother up as this badass the whole movie, and then he comes face to face with his brother, the accountant, and just drops his gun. Doesn't even fight him because he knows he has no chance. He's been sending his guys, and then when he confirms that it's his brother, he's just like, oh, that's it, I'm done. And how fucking cool is that in an era of just super everything turned up to 11 to have your final conflict end with just dropping the gun, just not even diplomacy, just pure fear. That is way more badass than shooting a bunch of people. They fear you so much.
I remember there's a bunch of things in that movie that I remember quite fondly.
Right.
Like I
liked it.
Yeah, even though I think to like when he does the math in front of Anna Kendrick, and she does that little lip bite to be like, she's turned on by how good he is at math. Like it's like,
well, it's just Anna Kendrick acting. Her thing is like, I'm gonna want to fuck this guy.
But I remember thinking it was a funny moment to place that beat,
right?
Like to sort of have him, like he sort of does, he calculates in his head, and then sort of like as soon as he does it, she sort of is like.
But they also have great chemistry. I thought they had fantastic. I was a little let down when he actually like left her at the hotel to go off and have that final confrontation when she wasn't going to be in the movie anymore. Yeah, I like the account a lot. I thought that like the very end of the third act, they did a little too much to tie everything together in a way that was a huge logical leap.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the movie like it earned goodwill in the first 2 acts where I'm like, I like this. I like this anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of, is it based on anything? Do we know?
No, totally original.
Another example of, I would defend it on a similar vein. I think I think it works better than Passengers does, but I would defend it on a similar vein where it's like, oh, cool. Sure. It's an original action movie, and it's trying something different, and it's got a unique hook, and it's, they're trying something, which, as I said, it needs to be commended and it needs to be supported, especially by the way I always preach this is, if we're the people who are saying Hollywood needs to make more original movies, we also need to be the people who are willing to prop up a movie that might not fully work.
Totally.
But,
I mean, when you adapt a book, you have the advantage of characters, world building, rules, anything that the book gives you. Essentially, you just have to rearrange the pieces into the film. I mean, the best adaptations take it and make it their own, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you're creating a world from dust, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where, especially in a world of infinite action movies, where everything is turned up to 1,000, you have this kind of subdued one that manages to. And I can't say its praises enough for not being exploitative of the autistic thing.
Yeah, there
really
were some criticisms of that, but I agree. At least, and in all fairness, fully acknowledging that I'm not an expert on autism or how to deal with it. I can't speak to it from that perspective, but I remember reading those criticisms and concerns, and then going into the movie and thinking, isn't the movie ultimately doing something more positive by saying, hey, here is an autistic action hero?
Sure.
Like, sure, is it gonna, I understand that for the purpose of like making a Hollywood action movie, they're going to have to sacrifice some of the absolute specificity of him being autistic, and it's gonna have to be movie autism.
Absolutely.
But that's fine. all movies take.
And you know, there's no like certain set of like this person is autistic. Like even if he's supposed to have Asperger's syndrome, not everybody has every single symptom of Asperger's syndrome, and some people grow out of some of the stuff, believe it or not.
In fact, on that note, probably the movie's most progressive or most positive element would be the ending, the twist at the end, where they sort of reveal that the person who's on the phone is from, right?
Even though that's insane.
Yes,
That's preposterous.
It is. But I suppose it's nice to, in the sort of general idea, it's nice to say that like just because like even those people
Yes.
contribute.
What do you mean those people? No, well, what I was
Right.
This
So
is a minefield.
This whole operation is run by two people that society would normally deem, freaks.
Yeah.
People
Right.
who can't do anything by themselves.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're running the most efficient, like book cooking and assassination operation in the country.
Yeah, they've got. I actually the scenes that I actually thought were really well done in reference to his autism was the scenes where when he goes home and he's
kneading,
wrestling with his anxiety. He's kneading and he's got the light going and the loud music.
He's kneading his shin with a rolling pin like device. I'm not sure what it is.
Which is some real shit. I have cousins who are on the higher end of the autism spectrum, and they do go to like real therapy like that, where it's they need the pressure and they need the sort of the bombardment to calm them down. And it was cool to see that portrayed in a movie in an accurate way.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic.
Totally. And I have autistic cousins, and they also have posters of Spider-Man on their ceiling. So that's pretty much the only crossover. So I enjoyed it. I'd kick this up to a 72. I think I give it an extra 20. It's not amazing, and it is lazily directed at times.
Well, and speaking to
I'd love to see a sequel. I think watching this movie, this is one of those movies you watch and you go, I can't wait to see what they follow this up with. And Accountant 2, please.
Well, ironically, what I was saying earlier about how we need to prop up original movies, it's funny because I would say culturally we do, even though I think you ask the average person, even not like a movie fan, and they say like, oh yeah, like I wish Hollywood would make more original movies. But then I think and this is not us specific, but like collectively, culturally, what we do, I would argue, is we go easy on big movies.
Yeah.
And we're harsher on original movies, ironically. I think, especially in money. Like, because I think we do that thing where we look at the reviews, look at like, sure, it made some money, maybe not that much money, but like we're kind of harsh on Passengers and on The Accountant.
Totally.
And we're kind of like, I know DC fans would disagree, but we kind of go easy, especially with money.
Right.
We go easy on movies that aren't qualitatively up to where they should be. And
Suicide Squad.
Well, because it's genuinely because I've heard the argument from people who come out of Suicide Squad and they go, yeah, but like I love these characters and I want to see them again, so I'm going to support the movie.
Right.
And I understand that from like, oh, I haven't seen Harley Quinn on the big screen. I want to see more of her. The way that there's tons of Spider-Man, like she's my favorite.
Right.
And you go, I understand that, but we are sending the wrong message.
Totally. And
because we're sending the message that it's okay.
Yeah.
That this portrayal is okay.
That's what Dom said back when we did our Suicide Squad episode. He was like, I understand you want to see Harley Quinn, but how can you be like satisfied with this is the version that they gave you?
Yeah.
This is the Joker. He has a club and it doesn't matter for the rest of the thing. It's surreal.
It's like I love pizza, but I don't want cafeteria pizza for the rest of my life.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It just looks like pizza. It's silly fun. It's like French bread. What the fuck is this?
DiGiorno.
I want real pizza.
I want real DiGiorno pizza.
Yeasty ass DiGiorno pizza. It's also, who is this movie for? And when somebody tries to make a film, it's like, oh, motherfucker, you're opening yourself up to a whole world of criticism because you're clearly making movies for smart people or attempting to make a movie for somebody who appreciates this more. So obviously it's going to be looked under a harsher lens.
Yep.
Whereas, we did Fast 8 last week, and I think overwhelmingly the response has been like, who the fuck cares? Like, of course it wasn't a good movie. Who cares? And it's like, yeah, I guess you're right.
Somebody.
I'm going to take down Split. I absolutely understand that it is a more, as someone who saw The Last Airbender, hasn't seen everything in between, but it is more competently put together than a bunch of his previous films, and I agree with that, and I think some of the suspense stuff works fine. I do agree that James McAvoy is good in it.
Yeah,
I think there's some cinematography choices that were interesting and worked for me, and so I don't want to rip it down into like it's terrible. At the same time, I have some thoughts about the ending, obviously, but I would say this movie is almost a product of people were so excited to say there was a comeback,
Right.
that we just gave it to a movie that was okay.
I feel that. And let me just touch on this real quick there. It's an M. Night movie, came out last year. Budget of $9 million, ended up making $275 million on a
People
$9
like it.
million budget. I wonder if this was this was definitely an unexpected hit. I don't think anybody would bank on
Yeah.
M. Night. I think this is mostly self-funded, if I'm not mistaken.
It's him and Blumhouse, right?
Right.
Like
Something
who
like
are
that.
famous for, we're gonna.
So I mean, that's the story you've been waiting for. He's this guy. He's started with this run of really good movies that people really enjoy. That people really enjoy and finally remember, and you want him to come back because it's been nothing. He's been a joke for the last 10 years, and he picks himself up by his bootstraps, and then he does it. However, this movie's fucking weird.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's funny, and we can talk even about some of the double standards that exist here, where I think it's more easy for a male filmmaker or director to pull this off.
Right.
But okay, I enjoyed Hacksaw Ridge, so I'm not going to say that it's in the same category.
Right.
At the same time, I even think that movie is a slight case of we just love the idea that someone can mess up that badly and come back. People like the narrative of someone who messed up horribly redeeming themselves.
Wait, what did he do?
And I did enjoy that movie, and I also don't struggle in general with being able to watch a movie and sort of separate the two things. Like I don't
Art from artist.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I do, and I must stress when I make that comparison, by the way, I'm genuinely just comparing quality of the film to the sort of larger people wanting a comeback story.
Sure.
Not that what they did is the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like M. Night just made some bad movies. Gibson's personal life is a separate.
Dude, I don't know, dude. The Last Airbender is on par with me for like anti-Semitism and all this, and hating women. If you've made that movie, it's worse than anything that Mel Gibson's ever seen.
But I think it comes. I think that's ultimately where it comes to. I think it should be. It's currently sitting at like 70 something. 75. I don't know if I want to make it wrong. Take it. Yeah, I'm gonna take it down to like 55.
I'm like staring daggers. He's like, I don't know if and he catches eyes. He's like, oh, okay, it's 55.
Yeah,
it's slow.
No, because again, I think it's a good example of. It's almost different to what I was doing earlier, where I think it is too competently put together for me to like rip it into like low.
Right.
I was compelled enough, not only by the story, but like I thought enough of the filmmaking elements were good. I do think I think a lot of my criticism comes though from it was good, was it exceptional?
Right.
And then the other part being, and I do think the ending undoes a lot of its goodwill for me. Like the thing I keep thinking with the ending is fine. A lot of people in the theater who watched it with me were very excited when that happened, and full disclosure, I haven't seen. I haven't seen Unbreakable, but my reaction to that was it not only reeks of a certain arrogance that you think you can reference your own movie from 10, 15 years ago and sort of assume that it's a big deal.
Sure.
But also it genuinely doesn't work if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. However, let me counter this. So this is a $9 million budget movie. I think he was making this movie for people who are going to go see an M. Night Shyamalan movie who have more or less seen Unbreakable. I do understand that there is a sense of arrogance there, but I think that has to do with he kind of is living in his own world right now, and this, for whatever reason, bled out and became a mainstream success. I don't know. I don't even know how serious he is about that idea of pitting these two characters together, or if it was just there as titillation. With him, I really don't know. I can't foresee a connected Shyamalan universe in the future.
Shyamalaniverse?
Right? Yes, absolutely. Shyamalana Galaxy. What did you think of Split? Did you see Split?
I did see Split. I saw Split for the only reason that I wanted to see Split from the trailers, which is I want to see James McAvoy be 100 people.
Yeah.
And so on that level, I was satisfied, and everything else I thought was fine.
But were you? Because he was 3 people. Like they're like, yeah, he's gonna be 24. He's got 24 distinct personalities, and we're only gonna see 3 of them because the other ones are locked away. Or something.
I understand. It was still an impressive performance.
Right.
It was still like, there's another McAvoy film called Filth. That's a terrible movie, but his performance, I'm like, see the movie for McAvoy. Because McAvoy gives 110 in some of the worst movies I've ever seen. He's incredible.
What's funny about, in general, what I've noticed about like how we go into talking about both films is that I think when we mention a film is bad, we initially do actually acknowledge a lot of bad stuff about it, but then sort of go why we defend it. And then here it's almost the other way around, where I say I want to tear it down, but then I also find myself acknowledging the things it does do well. Absolutely. Here's something I'll say, which makes me also understand why it was a commercial hit. The trailer / premise is smart. Right. Like in terms of high concept hook, bring people in. There's a person who has 24 personalities and his final one is a monster. Like, if that's your hook, you sort of go, okay. And it's a contained, like, there's people trapped.
Is he a monster? Isn't he a monster?
Yeah.
Is that a question?
Yeah, it's a great get people into the theater, put butts in seats kind of premise. Mm-hmm. And then you do indeed have the marketing and the trailer basically promises, hey, you're going to see this actor really go for it. And he's going to...
Right.
It's a meaty role for someone to just act the fuck out of as many possible scenes. And it does deliver those two things.
Absolutely.
It delivers you that premise and it delivers you that actor doing what the premise promises.
Yeah.
So I understand why, there's that in that sense, scene. There's a certain, you got what you paid for, which there is there has to be credit to movies who do that, because I think a lot of marketing does mislead in some sense. So I do think,
Yeah, I would actually counter that, because I feel like the whole movie was kind of misleading its audience, where it all ultimately leads up to the reveal. The reveal, that it's the big superhero thing, and I think without that context, that makes that ending totally flavorless. Where you spend the movie with these 3 girls who didn't do anything particularly wrong that weren't like an execution. I mean that in the figurative, like, film sense. And then they just feel terrible whole movie. True. Then they get eaten and killed, and then she scares the guy off and is free. Like, I don't get what anyone's arc is in this movie in any meaningful
I suppose
way.
Actually, yeah. I'm always going to go back on what I said, but yes.
45.
No, but you're
10.
You're right. It's weird because the reason the ending is almost a little bit upsetting is because the beat where she's out of the zoo and she's in the back of the cop car, and then the cop says, "Your uncle's going to come get you."
Right.
And
back in the hands of a rapist.
Yeah,
yes.
And you almost think that's going to be the sort of downbeat, depressing ending, which actually is saying something. In a way, right? Like, I'm not sure it's making the most profound point, but you sort of go, oh, fuck. Shit. Like, she just escaped all of that.
Frying pan into the fryer.
Yeah.
And that's a very horror movie way of ending things, if your movie has camp and fun to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, things were bad, but now things are about to get even worse. Not when you're like, talking about rape your whole movie.
But then what's weird though is to have that ending where you almost have that, that sort of tragic thing, which leaves you with a feeling to then go, and by the way,
get excited. Do you know what's so funny? I always have to bring this up because my father saw Split, and my father called me after. He's like, yeah, that movie was pretty good. I could have written a better ending though. And you guys, he did. He called me. He's like, I thought that when he was going to go to the train station to get the horde, I thought he was going to bump into Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was going to see what he was doing to those girls, like with his power. And then he was going to go save the girl, touch the girl, see what her uncle was doing to her. And then like the movie would be him taking her under his wing. And I'm like, that is a better movie. I'm like, you did write a better movie, Dad.
Yeah, and he didn't that's a fucking lie, because there's no way he thought that Bruce Willis would show up in the middle of the movie.
He read a thing. He knew.
And this is a tangent, and forgive me if we go into this too long, but we all saw Cloverfield Lane, right? We all saw that together, I think.
Yep.
That's a good example of a movie where I've heard a similar argument to what we just said about the ending, but I would argue it's different because some people say that movie is a really interesting, contained movie, and then at the end they just shove in and I understand that argument, but I did see a video recently on YouTube which actually, for me, clarified why in my head that never bothered me. Right. Because I went into a movie called 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Sure.
Right.
I understand that some people are like, oh, it would have been a really interesting movie if she just got out and then we don't know if the invasion is real.
Right.
And sure, maybe in a sort of artistic indie movie that might have been more interesting.
Right.
But I paid money to see a Cloverfield tie-in. And so for me, to have that movie then end that way, I don't know. I was kind of expecting some kind of Cloverfield-ish thing at the end.
It was a payoff.
So at least the marketing slash and then you get into this fascinating conversation about the movie by itself and how
exactly.
And I don't
how
think
it interacts with marketing.
Yeah, and how it
that
interacts with the
resonates
world.
with
Exactly. And you
audiences.
can't and I think especially on bigger scale movies, you can't separate those two things.
That's fascinating.
Like I think, and this is a different example again, but for instance, the marketing in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is responsible for putting the final shot of the movie in the trailer.
Post-credit scene as well.
Yep, because that is something that is going to absolutely affect your perception and enjoyment of the movie. You're going to be more upset that you didn't get to see a rhino fight scene than if you hadn't known that he was going to be in it.
Right.
Because you're going to go, hang on, like I was promised an action scene here and it's the final shot of the movie. Different, all these examples are slightly different, but I do think you get into this conversation about like what the movie is promising versus,
true.
and you're right, actually, leading all this back to Split, which is what we were talking about. You're right. Like, I'm going to go back on what I said. Because the ending does kind of undo it. You promised me a sort of contained James McAvoy and some girls movie, and then you end it and you go, by the way, this was all basically a trailer.
Sure.
For
another thing. And that was my girlfriend's
Honey,
take on it as
what are you in
well.
the mood for this weekend? I want a contained James McAvoy and some girls kind of movie.
I got just the film for you.
I want them all contained. I watched Hell or High Water, which has a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I hate so many things about this movie. I hate this movie. Okay. It's not because it's like in your face bad. It's just so woefully unremarkable and such a bundle of like, there's not a single original thing in this movie that we haven't seen. Every character is a one-dimensional cliche. The dialogue is rough. There's a line in the first, also, I mean, just beating you over the head with, we see 3 billboards in the first 30 minutes of the movie that say, need fast cash, in debt, and we'll see 2 more before the movie is over.
Because the plot of the movie is that the 2 guys are in
Right.
debt and they need to rob banks.
Their mom's house is being foreclosed on and there's oil on the land, so they need to raise $40,000 by the end of the week so that they can pay off the loan, and then they'll get $50,000 a month so he can support his ex-wife and his kids.
Sure.
So he's robbing banks with his brother, and Jeff Bridges, who is basically just playing a modern version of Rooster Cogburn, is on their tail with his nondescript Indian sidekick.
Right.
They have...
Who was the partner for Breaking Bad, where it's just this mildly ethnic person that the white guy has a heart
I
of
don't
gold.
remember.
He's ribbing him with racial things, but he secretly really cares about him. It's like, we've seen that.
We have. Well, the thing about them was they never had any chemistry. I felt every conversation that they had, it was like the first time they were speaking. And you also get that great conversation when they're in the car. It's like, when I retire, I'm going to take my large family and my wife out, and we're going to go fishing every day. It's like, oh, you're definitely not going to die in the third act. You're definitely going to make it to the end of the movie. Of course, yeah. There's a line. I hate this line so much. There's a line when they're interviewing the first woman who has been robbed the bank. He's like, "What? You see what color were they? What color were they? Black, white?" She goes, "Their skins or their souls." And you're just like, "Fuck you, dude. Are you kidding? Those boys just robbing from the banks that's been robbing us their whole lives." It's like, God damn, man. Like, we get it.
Yeah, thank you for telegraphing the point of the movie.
Yeah, it's the dialogue every review that I've read compares this movie to No Country for Old Men, and the dialogue does.
I would agree that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I enjoy it for a completely different reason. Like I kind of like that it wears its theme on its sleeve. Like sometimes I enjoy that movies that sort of exist.
No, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That movies that are sort of going for Oscars and stuff are happy to sort of be like, yeah, we like
It's a crime story.
yeah, this is what this is about, and they're not sort of layered too much in like we're hiding and this is what it's really about, and that they're kind of happy to have that sort of be surface level, and that it's okay that people can read into this.
But it's all surface level. There's not. I don't.
Yeah.
These characters just exist to like. know anything about them. I don't know what their interests are. I don't know what their histories are, other than like the history that's provided to further the plot of the movie. I don't buy any of them as anything but a clever screenplay.
I can definitely see that. So I watched this with Nick, and I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think what sets us off is the expectation of a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, because that puts it in like a top tier of a film.
Yeah. And also, I think,
could not disagree more or less. What the fuck phrase am I looking for? I disagree.
Yes.
And because I believe that it is trying to be a Coen Brothers movie, and there's just no getting around that. A lot of it's not magical realism, but where everybody has this clever thing that they have to say, like everybody is a thinker. It's like, come on, man.
Our
It's very Sons of Anarchy, which is what the guy who wrote the screenplay. You see a lot of that stuff in that show, and I can't watch a lot of that show for that reason.
Right.
It's Aaron Sorkin-esque, where everybody's got this fucking snappy thing they have to say. It
was funny because our roommate Isaac, while we were watching,
Aaron
he
Sorkin
goes,
for Hicks. I will place it. I'm sorry.
Well, we're watching. Isaac goes, and Isaac goes, like one of the actors, like, oh man, I'm only a waffle waitress in this scene. Don't worry, it's a meaty role. You'll have 3 monologues about the ills of society. Like,
I need this money, support my kids. So if you want to give it back to them thieving bankers, it's like, okay.
So
I was just waiting for like a bag. Oh, have you caught him yet? It's like, not sir yet, Mr. Goldenstein banker.
Well, they took all of my bags of gold coins. I don't know, but so like the movie, it was just unremarkable. It was competently made, sure, although there's no real cinematography that struck me. It just didn't do
I disagree with that. There were some pretty jarring shots of like the American Southwest, like some nice
maybe
desert.
the end.
I think what I enjoyed though, and it's weird because I absolutely understand, like, I think if it rubbed you the wrong way for those reasons, I'm like, yeah, there's so much of it that if those things were rubbing you the wrong way, that the movie's not got enough other stuff going on to like pull you back.
Right.
So I understand that reaction, but I would agree that, for instance, you see some of the deaths coming, but that being said, I still found it satisfying when we got there. So for instance, when he stays behind to shoot at the people who are chasing them, when
Ben Foster,
Pine's brother, stays behind to like shoot at everyone. You're like, okay, he's gonna be toast, and it's probably, especially after he shoots Jeff Bridges' partner, you go, cool, Jeff Bridges is gonna get him,
right?
But I think something about the staging and the timing and the editing still made me go, when he gets shot, I was like there was some kind of sense of satisfaction, even though I knew it was coming. There's something inevitable about the plot that I still enjoyed, and I think the one scene that I would classify as that for me, and this speaks to the power of endings,
right?
I think the ending does a lot for why I ultimately look at this movie positively. I think it's a good example of a movie that doesn't end with a shootout, but totally satisfying.
Moment. Sure,
like the fact that he's on the land and they leave, and you sort of go, I'm satisfied. I don't need to see either shoot each other.
Well, it's interesting because
I'll give you that.
I feel like this is, to bring it back to the Coen Brothers, this is kind of like a Coen Brothers movie for people who hate loose ends, for people who hate just like the kind of not quite telegraphed themes. I mean, I don't mean to insult the movie because I do think it's competently made, and I did find myself, it's like, I know exactly what all this is, but I'm enjoying it because it's a Southwest tale. It's like a story about outlaws and they're doing their thing, and it's like a Cormac McCarthy-esque opera, but it doesn't have the layers that I think that makes a great movie.
Yeah,
and the
I can
fact
see
that this is higher than No Country. The movie that it is kind of a pale imitation of, but also kind of like a more mainstream take on. There's even the similar story beat of where a main character dies maybe midway through the movie, and then the movie proceeds.
No, absolutely.
That's kind of,
two scenes a reflection.
That's kind of strange that it's,
I can see that. It's a No Country
has that beat as well.
It's a No Country that won't have an ending that makes people go, what the fuck?
Like,
it just kind of it'll just play well.
I know.
Just about everyone.
It's satisfying.
I know,
it's a tale about men.
Which is probably why it scores 98%, because it's hard to imagine people watching it and going,
right,
oh, fuck this.
Sure,
as opposed to if Nick was it.
I know.
As opposed to Nick.
Like,
well, no, what's first? Well, the ending No Country for Old Men makes perfect sense in the context of the movie. Like, that ending is the point of the movie.
But
I understand that. I guess some people were like,
at the same time,
what was that?
If someone,
I am one of those people.
Tommy Lee Jones is explaining how he can no longer. He's seen things that have shown him he can't keep up in this world any longer. Like he no longer has a place in this new violent, greedy world. There's no country for old men. He's joining his father in the fire.
No, but I'm talking about more of Anton Chigurh getting hit by the car.
Well, that's just that you can't stop what's coming. Like they like, but
Life's a big car, man.
but the Coen Brothers films are all about like cosmic coincidences and the other idea that you can't stop what's coming and there are no clean
But
getaways.
stop. It doesn't matter what Coen Brothers movies are about.
But
if
that
in
is
the context of this movie. It's like, why did he break his arm? Like, what was that all about? I don't.
But why did anything
understand.
happen? Why did Llewellyn find the money, man? It was all like you don't. Nobody is in complete control of their destiny. That's what the point of the movie is.
I see that. I think it's a little. I don't want to say contrived, but like fuck you. But I see what you're saying.
Out of your mind.
I totally
it's
get it.
a masterpiece.
I'm sorry. What were we talking about previously?
Sorry, I didn't.
Heck or High Water.
Yes. Well, it's even, but having said that, even though the movie makes sense, I actually think even if someone pitched you that ending where they go, oh, and then there's like a confrontation scene and they talk for a bit and then they walk their separate ways. I think there's genuinely a chance that, especially if you were thinking studio executive style or even some audience members, I think people would go, that sounds like it would be satisfying.
Sure.
But then it's very confidently handled and executed.
Oh, totally.
And as a result, you sort of go, yeah, like thematically the movie has just come to an end.
Right.
Like,
Because pretty much, I think it's these two men are more or less done with each other, where it's like he doesn't have the authority anymore. He doesn't have the will to fight anymore. He doesn't he got what he wanted, and these men, they have the opportunity to walk away, and then they do, which is kind of cool. But I don't know. I wish that there was more. There's more meat here instead of just being a good story. I wish it was a compelling story. I wish I could sink my teeth because, the brother was just crazy the whole movie. No humanity to it.
Well, no,
and that bugged me.
But he wasn't even like he would have little crazy bursts and then he would be like incredibly human when they were having conversations in the car. I didn't buy the character one way or the other.
But it was always like, you remember when we were kids? Like it's always just like the dialogue that you write.
I know that
brothers.
I know that everyone's going on about Jeff Bridges and the people who do compliment the performances compliment Ben Foster. Whereas actually for me, and I don't know if this is just me, but I was the most impressed by Chris Pine.
I think so too.
Because
I lost him in that role.
Yeah, well, because I think it's one of the first times where I was like, oh, you're not just, like you're actually kind of playing a person who you're playing against type, and as a result, I'm just kind of enjoying this. I don't know. I think it's one of the better performances I've seen from him. Like as far as serious acting goes.
Yeah, he's good.
I still will say I don't understand why Ben Foster decided to have a shootout with civilians and cops on a mountain. Mm-hmm. I don't understand what his character's motivation was. I don't know.
He's self-destructive because he does have that line in the beginning where he's like, I knew we weren't getting out of this from the beginning. And he goes, then why did you come? He says, because you asked, little brother. Like clearly he has a death wish. He's been in prison. He just wants it to be over. And I get that. It's a failing of the movie that that's not like the point of his character. It's a failing of the movie that he isn't maybe not on the nose self-destructive, but just like give us a little bit more about his self-hatred and why he would make this stand on the mountain, just an outlaw stand at the very end. I feel like a modern movie demands that. A modern Western demands that. We can't just have the outlaw fighting the cops anymore. That's just my take.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my problem is just still the justification, but I think, I see what you're saying.
So where do you want to put it down to?
Yeah, I give it like a 60.
I can see that. I would go higher. I mean, obviously it's not my score, but I enjoyed it. I have a lot of the same issues that you had, but I think overall I was like, there were a couple lines that I was the skin line. It's just like, oh, you're so fucking clever. I
know. Well, the worst one was
when the writer's mouth is in just like a normal ass person in the screenplay. I hate that so much.
The part that bothered me the most is when they got the actress from No Country for Old Men, the woman who owns the hotel.
That's true.
She's the waitress, and she's like, it's not what do you want, it's what don't you want. You either don't want the corn or you don't want the green bean. And it's just like, people talk like this. That's just some plain, straightforward Texas speaking.
My raise is Dorf or Days of Future Past.
Oh, I thought you meant
Duff. Days of Future Past. X-Men. Days of Future Past came out, I guess, 2014. Now it was a while ago. It was a $200 million. Made what, like 700,000, something like that.
Yeah, 700,000.
It was a really good year for Fox.
So it's sitting in a 91.
Yeah.
It's, the Bryan Singer, one of the Bryan Singer ones. It came out 2014, 91%. So this is highest rated X-Men movie by far. One of the highest rated superhero movies of all time. And I think on first viewing, it works. I think because you're seeing all your characters, you cut to the future, you have all these cool costumes, they're using their powers. There's dystopia, and then we go back to the past, and we have that really great Quicksilver scene. It's just super imaginative and interesting, and you see all your characters doing all the things that you want to see them doing.
Yeah.
And then you watch it one more time and you realize that none of it makes any fucking sense at all. Like, it's a very lopsided, sloppily put together movie. You realize that most of the future stuff does not need to be there. There's a cut of this movie where Kitty Pryde is like a central character to the film. They could just cut that around out entirely.
Oh yeah, it went back to theaters like that.
Did it really?
Yeah, it was, what was it called? It was it was a different cut, and it went into theaters.
Cut?
The Rogue cut.
Oh, it was Rogue. I apologize. Yeah, it was Rogues, not Kitty Pryde. I really don't know what happened if I saw a different movie the first time I saw it, and then my second viewing, it was just like...
I've seen it multiple times, although both times were at the theater.
Really?
So,
Okay.
I do... It's interesting. I agree. I don't know how low you're planning to take it, but I think it's... and I enjoy The Force Awakens more than Days of Future Past, but it maybe a little bit has that element of you're going to be swept up in the initial excitement of seeing everyone again, and it's a movie that very nicely combines both elements. Because
it has one of the best super power scenes ever with the Quicksilver scene. It is so imaginative and visually interesting.
I remember it was also exciting the first time you sat down because the franchise had been in such a weird place.
Right.
Yeah.
After, you'd had the Wolverine Origins, and then you'd had First Class, which you liked, and then you had the Wolverine. So it was this.
Sure. What is this timeline?
Yeah.
What the fuck is
happening?
Going on?
And then you watch the movie, and it starts, and there's the title sequence, and it's the X-Men theme again. From the first two, and you go, I actually do like the old characters, and they're combining it with the new characters, and it's everyone. Right. So there's an initial high that you'll get from experiencing it. I agree. When you rewatch, when that's gone, you actually find yourself going, I don't know. I think logic leaps, I'm definitely with you. For instance, when they they leave Quicksilver behind at the airport, and you're like, you could solve everything.
Yeah. This character. Sure.
And the writer's he doesn't come with.
Do you remember at the time, this was before Age of Ultron, and I saw this movie, I was like, oh man, they're really going to have to step it up with Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. Turns out they didn't. They didn't have to.
I remember that
this is all that this movie really had.
Quicksilver in Age of Ultron was such a bummer though, in comparison.
It was so silly. Yeah. That whole movie is silly. Whatever. We'll get to that in a second. I think the real frustrating part about this movie is that this was supposed to be the one that fixed things. This was supposed to be the one that took all these disparate timelines together and created a thing, and then just ended up making more questions. I mean, the ending arguably doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or we haven't seen, granted, I have not seen Apocalypse, but from what I hear, the whole thing of Wolverine being left on that boat and then being recovered by Stryker, who's actually Mystique, doesn't matter.
A lot of... Again, it's interesting. Here we can have a conversation about the movie functioning as a movie and
as a
not existing in a vacuum. I agree. Apocalypse fails this movie in a lot of ways.
Right.
Apocalypse takes things from this movie that were enticing and fun, leading into the next chapter, that undoes them in a sort of annoying way, we're placing it in the 80s now, even just how much the characters age doesn't make any sense, and it sort of gets to a point where you're like, what you said, what was the point of doing a super intriguing thing where Mystique's going to be the person who picks up Wolverine?
Right.
What does
the
that
consequences
do?
What
does that do to the timeline? And then to just go,
nothing.
It's fine.
Nothing much.
My biggest problem with the end of Days of Future Past was that Kelsey Grammer was out of focus. Hello, Logan. I was so excited, and you don't even see him.
It's weird. I remember, and again, maybe I'm misremembering it, but from any time I saw it, what I ultimately do remember thinking the movie got right, especially in sort of context of most X-Men movies, and especially since we'd had a few that really missed the mark, and also sometimes as a comment on bigger movies in general. I do remember liking that it ultimately came down to, yes, you had flying stadiums, and yes, you had giant robots attacking everyone, and yes, you had all the nonsense, but it did come down to Charles convincing Mystique not to pull the trigger.
Of course.
Like, I remember thinking, like, that's what these movies are supposed to be. It's ultimately supposed to be, don't be the person they already think you are. And it did come down to ultimately sort of being her arc in a movie that has
Sure.
a lot of characters and arguably isn't solely her arc.
I'm having a hard time waving away the stadium thing, though.
Sure.
Because the point of that scene was fear of mutants, where it turns out that it's unfounded.
Yeah.
Turns out she's not really going to shoot the president. So don't worry, guys. We don't need to build sentinels. Mutants are fine.
Yeah.
We just saw a guy lift the stadium.
Yeah. No,
that
you're right.
undoes the choice.
You're right.
Like in a vacuum, that choice is, I agree with you 100%, where it's like, that's what it comes down to, where it's don't give in. Don't give in. And that's what Professor X is all about. That's his character. That's what X-Men is all about. And it's brilliant. Just don't pull the trigger.
It's the
But if we weren't surrounded by a stadium that was miles away minutes prior, this would not. And it's televised.
You're right. No, and I do remember thinking that beat was cool in that when the first time you watch it, especially, you're like, holy fuck, where is he taking the stadium?
Yeah.
And then when you when it lands and it shows that he's built a wall around the White House,
Right.
like, you're like, that's fucking cool.
Oh, it's totally rad.
But I agree. I mean, and I think that speaks to maybe just the larger, the fact that you always have to take the themes of these stories in these comic books in the abstract, in the same way that you can't delve too much into Zootopia. You just have to read it as like, racism's bad.
Yes.
That's all that movie's saying, because if you really delve into like, but who exactly are the white people? And who
Right.
exactly, like, if you jump into that, you create a mess. And I agree, maybe the larger issue with X-Men in general is, we would have an issue with gay people if they were dropping stadiums, or if they were blowing things up, or if they were,
Right.
on the reg. Like, and yeah, sure, there's a whole community of them that try to fix things, but they kind of destroy things when they try to stop the others.
Right. So it's like, we probably shouldn't have these.
Yeah.
We should probably just get rid of all of these. I don't think anyone would have a problem with that.
Yeah. I see that. I do see that.
It's fun. Dom and I talked about, there's just because I thought, I mean, the movie was, I didn't have very many feelings about it. I didn't like it. But the viral market, I had this conversation with Dom, the viral marketing for that movie promised something really interesting, where it was all about like the assassination of Kennedy, like somebody curved the bullet. And so I thought that was going to be a major part of the movie. I was really excited. It's a conversation they have on the plane. It's
absolutely.
it's a 2-minute conversation.
Yeah.
But I love shit like that, where it's, let's take this character and give them great historical significance.
But,
That's
but
really
show it to
funny.
me. Don't throw it away. The movie-
one of us.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That I actually want to see that. I think that's interesting. Like, make that a centerpiece of the film.
I think that's it's a good example of something where I go, I think large mainstream audiences don't want to see a detour into all that. But maybe you're right.
I see what you mean. Let's do like a 10-minute sequence where we assassinate JFK with Magneto's powers.
It's so good. Who doesn't want that?
And then you intercut it with Jackie.
Yeah.
Like, because apparently that scene is brutal when he gets shot in the face.
She's got like psychic power. She's like picking up his brain pieces with like psychic energy. Just like,
I just want an X-Men movie where midway through it cuts to 10 minutes of raw footage of the towers collapsing.
Yeah.
That's all that I want. Why don't people want to see that?
I enjoy it. But 91, no thank you. 61. I don't think I'd make this quite rotten, but I think functionally it doesn't work as well as it should. Does feel kind of like 3 different movies, because you're bringing in essentially 3 different universes with the Wolverine, the First Class, and the original series. And they shouldn't have done that. Yeah. It should have felt like one movie, and it should have tied everything together, and it should have been tight. And then they splintered it immediately, for better or for worse. I mean, I didn't love Logan, but I think that that's definitely a better direction to take the films in than Apocalypse. Granted, I haven't seen it.
I think there's sometimes, and it's weird, I don't always have this experience, but and as we've talked about very at the top of this episode, about the aggregate scores giving a perception. I think I've had that experience a little bit more with the Wolverine movies, where I think X-Men Origins Wolverine is as bad as everyone says it is.
Right.
I think the Wolverine, I was like, cool ideas, you tried some cool stuff, you're in the right direction, but you're not quite there
Exactly.
yet. And a lot of people said that one was good. Like, that one has something like 70%.
Yeah.
And I would put that one at like maybe 60 or like 59. Like
Oh, the Wolverine?
yeah, like
Yeah,
the
I didn't like it.
Yeah, well, because I remember thinking like cool ideas and like cool in a different setting, and it was cool seeing him in Japan. And
I love the
all those
snow
things.
aesthetic.
Yeah,
where
a lot of
he's
cool
storming
ideas,
the castle
and
thing.
they
Right.
tried some cool shit. And I think I totally get why the studio saw that movie and went, you can try again.
Yeah.
With this next one, because they were like,
Right.
yeah, these people have it in them to make a really good one.
Right.
And then but so again, I'm a little bit behind how excited the audience were, and I would say even though I really enjoyed Logan, I'm again just a tad behind where everyone else is. Everyone's like masterpiece, game changer, R-rated,
Totally.
brilliant, and I'm like, no, it was really good.
Yeah,
It's good, and it is good, and I do not understate that. So I'm not on the anti train for Logan, but you know, maybe not game changing masterpiece. Maybe
Right.
it was just really fucking cool.
It's silly that you're closing the book right now. It's like you're finally hitting your stride and you're finally learning how to do these good, and you're like, that was the end of Logan. It's like, well, no. Now you actually know how to tell a nuanced superhero story.
Right.
Please do more of that. And it's like, nope, we're done. Oh, fucking hell, dude. It's like, what is the future of the X-Men franchise gonna look like now, though?
Yeah.
I mean, if
They're gonna be.
They're building it around Deadpool, and that's something that
you're right there. Oh god.
when we did the Deadpool episode, like when we still were talking about it, I said I think they're gonna do that, and you and Don were like, they'll never do that.
yeah, no, I think they might.
Yeah,
do that.
I think that's
it's
what they're
also
gonna
funny
do.
because it's a good example of something that like would kind of undo how great Logan was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, based on the text and how Deadpool
Right.
is as a character, it would be really fun if he runs into Logan. Like, it's like one of those good examples of like, because again, Hugh Jackman put that character to bed. That ending works better if we
Right.
know he's never coming back. At the same time, it would be really fun to see Deadpool and Wolverine hang. Like, so
absolutely.
it's really annoying how it's like, and I think Deadpool could just about get away with it. Like, didn't you die? Like, you know, it's like,
And that's really what Cable and Deadpool is, more or less, where it's like this gruff, like, you know, killer guy,
Yeah.
and with this silly killer guy.
Yeah.
I that'll be a lot of fun. How about just, you know, this is the end of our episode, but real quick, I don't think I've talked about this. Josh Brolin as Cable. What the fuck does that
do.
mean? See, this whole thing is getting weird now.
Yeah, he's going to address that he's Thanos.
Right.
Like, there's no way that Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to get him a nod.
It's weird that you're the purple guy and the other people's.
Because Ryan Gosling addressed that he was the Green Lantern in the first Deadpool. So I'm sure that there will be
Gosling.
like
Absolutely.
Ryan
Reynolds.
Gosling. Yeah, it should be Ryan Gosling. I have no idea.
We're talking about the Green Lantern, which was a notable bomb, versus the main villain of the Avengers series. Of like the main villain of the Marvel universe is Thanos. That's pretty huge. It's strange. It's just really strange, and it's a little frustrating because it's like I don't want to see the same five people over and over again. Like we
Yeah.
could have found somebody stronger than Josh Brolin. I don't. Not to say that Josh Brolin's a bad actor, but it's whatever.
Dude, I want the guy from Don't Breathe to be
Breathe.
Cable.
Yeah.
I want him to be Cable really
Yeah,
bad.
he was good.
Yeah.
Get out. Get out or don't breathe. Get out.
Don't breathe.
Don't breathe is the darkness one.
Yeah.
You said don't breathe.
Well, Tim, what do you mean?
Fuck you, dude.
I said don't breathe.
No,
yeah.
I know. It's that one line in the trailer has fucked everyone up about this movie. Wait,
No, people thought it was Lights Out. First, people got
Lights
Don't
Out.
Breathe.
Okay, there's Lights Out, Don't Breathe, and Get Out that are three radically different
You
films.
said Get Out or Don't Breathe. You said which one is the darkness one, and I was like, please go back.
Please
God, go back.
don't be making this joke right now. All right, guys, I think we'll end it on that one. Jesus, I'd like to thank Nick and Tim for being in my hot den today.
Pleasure as always.
Please, if you guys enjoyed this, head on over to www.patreon.com/reasonablebeef and donate what you can. Be a nice subscriber guy. I think we're up to like $50 a month. That's pretty rad. Let's make that $150 a month.
A day.
Yes, that'd be rad. Do you have anything to plug? Anybody? Anything cool coming up? No?
If you live in LA, catch me at open mics.
If you haven't already, go check out my short film, Your Old Man. Put that on my channel a few
Absolutely.
weeks ago.
Yeah, your old man. Check it out. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. My tits are sweating. They're so sweaty.
Ooh.